Welcome to Congress in Context. We are trying something a little different with this deep dive.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about Washington, we talk about the finished product, right? The law that gets signed, the ribbon that gets cut. But today we're looking at the machinery itself. And right now, that machinery is just grinding metal on metal.
It's less of a machine at the moment and more of a crime scene. Or maybe two different crime scenes, depending on which side of the aisle you're on.
That is the perfect way to put it. That's the vibe for this session. It's Wednesday, January 28, 2026. The House is gone. They aren't even in town.
Right.
But the Senate is locked in this pressure cooker. We're staring down a looming government shutdown. But what makes this specific day in the record so jarring is that the fight. It's not just about the budget. It's about two completely different versions of America.
We talk about polarization a lot, but this is, it's visceral. I mean, on one side of the Senate floor, you have senators celebrating an economic boom. They're talking about tax refunds and prosperity.
And on
the other side, literally yards away, you have senators describing a constitutional crisis. I mean, we're talking about state-sanctioned violence and the death of American citizens.
And somehow they have to pass a bill to keep the lights on.
Or decide not to. That's the thing.
So here's our mission today. We're going to deconstruct the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2026. That's H.R. 7148.
Okay.
We need to understand the strategic trap the Democrats are setting with this bill. Then we're going to wade into that massive divide between the economic reality and the civil liberties crisis.
And we should look at the quiet moments, too, the strange stuff.
Yes, the tributes and the quorum calls. And ask, how can these things even coexist?
And maybe why this system is designed to let them coexist, even when it feels like it just shouldn't.
Let's start with the ledger. H.R. 7148, the Consolidated Appropriations Act.
Sounds pretty boring.
It sounds like boring housekeeping. But right now, this bill is stuck in a motion to proceed. Can you explain what that actually means? Because it sounds like they're debating whether or not to start working.
That's exactly what it is. And this is the unique dysfunction of the Senate.
Right.
In most jobs, you just show up and you start the meeting. In the Senate, you have to debate and then vote on whether you were even allowed to start the meeting.
So they're gridlocked on step one.
They're gridlocked on step one.
Yeah.
But the reason they're stuck is fascinating. It's a strategic pincer movement.
This is the split we saw in the notes, right? Schumer and Senator Patty Murray trying to break the bill apart.
Exactly. Usually these appropriations bills are these huge omnibus packages. Everything gets lumped together. Defense, education, agriculture, homeland security. You just vote for the whole pie.
Get it all done at once.
But Schumer and Murray are trying to slice off one very specific piece. They want to pass 5 of the 6 appropriation bills immediately.
Which funds, 96% of the government?
About that, yeah. The military, healthcare, national parks, all funded. They want to pass that, get it to the president's desk, but they want to hold back the 6th bill.
The Department of Homeland Security.
The Department of Homeland Security, DHS.
So this is the trap. Because if you're Minority Leader John Thune and you say, no, we have to do it all together, you're effectively voting to shut down the military and the national parks just to protect the DHS budget.
Correct. It forces the Republicans to choose between their reputation for, strong defense and their law and order stance on the border and DHS.
And Thune sees this, obviously.
Oh, he sees the trap. He's out there arguing this is a dangerous delay tactic. He knows that if he agrees to the split, he loses all his leverage. The moment that 96% is funded, the Democrats have zero incentive to fund DHS at the levels Republicans want.
So Thune is holding the line. All or nothing.
And that standoff is why we're stuck in a motion to proceed. But to really understand why Democrats are willing to risk a shutdown over just one agency and why Republicans are digging in so hard, you really have to listen to the debate.
Okay, so let's enter the first reality. We'll call this one the economic reality. If you only read the transcripts from the Republican senators, John Thune, John Barrasso from Wyoming, John Kennedy from Louisiana, you would think it was a great day in America.
It was incredibly disciplined messaging. I mean, think about it. It's late January. People are getting their W-2s.
They're thinking about filing taxes.
Exactly. The Republicans know this. So their entire floor time was dedicated to one thing, the working families' tax cuts.
Senator Thune threw out a very specific number. He said analysts are projecting the average refund is $1,000 higher than last year.
That's a number that hits home.
Yeah.
It pays for groceries for a couple of months. It pays for a car repair. But they went deeper. Senator Barrasso really leaned into the populism of the tax code. He wasn't talking about capital gains for billionaires.
No, he was listing off waiters, barbers, bartenders.
And no tax on tips provision.
Right.
And the no tax on overtime for police officers and nurses. This is a crucial political wedge.
Oh.
Barrasso is essentially saying, we, the Republicans, are the reason you, the waitress, the cop, working a double shift, are keeping your money. The Democrats want to take that away to fund their agenda.
So it paints this picture of safety through prosperity. You're safe because you have money in your pocket.
And you're safe because we support the police. Senator Cornyn from Texas brought this up explicitly. He argued that the other side's rhetoric, the defund language, is what creates danger. He even said local officials in Minnesota are vilifying federal law enforcement.
Okay, so in this reality, the threat is the government taking your money and undermining the police.
Precisely.
Now, we have to turn the page, and I mean that literally. You turn the page in the record, and the tone doesn't just shift, it drops off a cliff.
It really does.
We enter the civil liberties crisis.
This is where the disconnect becomes almost hard to process. You have Senator Schumer, Ron Wyden of Oregon, and then the Minnesota delegation, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. They are not talking about tax refunds. They are talking about blood on the pavement.
They're talking about Alex Pretti and Renee Good.
And we need to slow down and look at these details, because the senators certainly did. Alex Pretti wasn't just a name in a file. Senator Klobuchar described him as a 37-year-old ICU nurse.
At the VA.
At the VA. He spent his life caring for veterans, and he was shot and killed by federal agents, ICE and CBP in Minneapolis.
And the story from the administration, from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, was that Pretti was a domestic terrorist, a would-be assassin.
Senator Schumer called that a vicious lie. And this is where the policy dispute becomes a constitutional crisis. It's not just that a man was killed, it's that the government allegedly fabricated a reason for it.
And then there's Renee Good.
Killed in her car. The picture the Democrats are painting is of a rogue federal force occupying an American city.
Senator Wyden went deep on this. He didn't just say, this is bad. He started listing amendments like he was reading an indictment.
It was a scathing legal takedown. He cited the First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, and the 10th Amendments. And for listeners who haven't looked at the Bill of Rights since high school, the context here is, well, it's terrifying.
Okay, let's break that down. Why the Fourth Amendment?
The Fourth protects against unreasonable search and seizure. Wyden and also Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, they were describing agents in full tactical gear. We're talking military, grade-spraying mace at women outside sports bars in Phoenix, or detaining people without cause in Minneapolis.
So they're saying these agents are operating outside the law.
Completely. And then the 10th Amendment.
That's states' rights, right. Isn't that usually a Republican talking point?
That's the irony of it. The 10th Amendment says powers not given to the federal government are reserved to the states. So the Democrats are arguing that these federal agents are overruling local police, ignoring local mayors.
Essentially occupying these cities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Against the will of the state government. Senator Smith described Minnesotans singing in the streets to protect their own neighborhoods, not from criminals, but from the feds.
And Wyden, he used the phrase American Gestapo.
He did. He said he wouldn't sign a check for an American Gestapo. And that is the why. That is the whole reason they want to split the bill. They're saying, we will fund the Army, we will fund the schools, but we cannot give a single dollar more to DHS until there's accountability for Alex Pretti and Renee Good.
It creates this impossible cognitive dissonance. On one channel, you hear, here's your $1,000 tax refund, enjoy your dinner. And on the other channel, it's federal agents are executing nurses and lying about it.
And that is why H.R. 7148 is going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
How do you compromise between those two realities? I mean, you can split the difference on a budget number. You can't split the difference on whether the government is a protector or a predator.
Right. So amidst all the screaming, the tax arguments, the constitutional fury, there is a moment in the record that I want to highlight. It happens all the time, but in this context, it felt surreal. Senator Thune finishes a speech, and he just says, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The quorum call.
And then nothing. The clerk just starts reading names so slowly. Mr. Alexander? Mrs. Baldwin, and it just drags on.
It's the Senate's pause button. Okay. I think it's important for people to understand the sensory experience of this. The floor is largely empty. The clerk isn't actually trying to check attendance.
No.
They are deliberately reading as slowly as possible to keep the clock running, but the action frozen.
So why do they do it?
It creates a neutral space, a vacuum. While the clerk is droning on, the senators are in the cloakrooms or they're huddled in the back trying to cut a deal.
Oh.
Or, cynically, they're just burning time to delay a vote they know they're going to lose. It's a moment of performative paralysis.
It feels symbolic. The machinery is literally humming, the clerk is speaking, but nothing is actually happening.
Exactly. It is the sound of a government waiting to see if it's going to crash.
And while that whole waiting game was playing out, there was another part of the record being generated, the extensions of remarks.
Ah, yes.
These are the written statements that don't get read out loud on the floor, but they enter the official history of the United States.
This is where we see that split screen at its most extreme. While Wyden is shouting about the Bill of Rights and Thune is warning about a shutdown, other senators are just submitting paperwork about local anniversaries and businesses.
It's so jarring. I was reading the submission from Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas. He was marking the one-year anniversary of the crash of Flight 5342.
January 29, 2025. Yeah, that was a tragedy that really shook Kansas. 67 people died.
And Moran didn't use this for political leverage. He listed the names. Lindsay Fields, a biology professor at Butler Community College. Bob and Lori Schrock, farmers from Kiowa. Grace Maxwell, an engineering student.
It's a moment of profound normalcy and grief, sitting right next to political chaos. You read those names, a teacher, farmers, a student, and you remember, oh, right, this is who the government is supposed to be for.
These are the people who need the FAA funded, who need the economy to work.
But because of the fight over DHS, the very bill that funds the FAA to prevent crashes like that is currently stuck.
That's the connection. The gridlock almost disrespects those victims because it jeopardizes the very safety systems Moran is mourning.
Yeah.
Then you had Senator Eric Schmidt from Missouri. He submitted remarks celebrating the 30th anniversary of the FA-18 Super Hornet flying out of St. Louis.
Right. That's a signal to the defense industry. I see you. I support the jobs in St. Louis. Again, totally disconnected from the Minneapolis crisis, but absolutely vital to his state.
And the one that really stuck with me, maybe because of the irony of the name, was Senator Jim Risch of Idaho. He recognized the small business of the month.
Okay.
Survival Garden Seeds in Rigby, Idaho.
Survival Garden Seeds.
Oh,
you could not make that up.
No, you can't. While the Senate is teetering on the edge of a shutdown and a constitutional crisis, he's honoring a company that sells heirloom seeds for long-term storage.
It's almost too on the nose. But for Senator Risch, that's a Tuesday. He has to support Idaho small businesses. It just shows you that the gears of local politics keep turning, even when the national engine is completely exploded.
So we have the motion to proceed stuck. We have the quorum called droning on. We have the extensions of remarks filing into the void. What is the end game here?
Well, the end game is a game of chicken. The Democrats have placed a bet. They believe the American public will be more outraged by the deaths in Minneapolis than they are by a delay in funding.
So they pass 96% of the funding.
And they're betting Republicans won't dare vote against it just to save DHS.
And the Republicans.
They're betting that the tax cuts are popular enough and that the fear of defunding the police is strong enough that they can pin the blame for the chaos on the Democrats. They're banking on the idea that safety equals order, while Democrats are banking on safety equals justice.
It just goes back to that definition. If you're a waiter in Wyoming getting tax-free tips, maybe you side with Thune. But if you're a nurse in Minneapolis watching federal agents in tactical gear, you side with Klobuchar.
And the tragedy is both of those people are Americans, and they both need a functioning government. But right now, the Senate can't figure out how to speak to both of them at the same time.
That's the question I want to leave listeners with. We always say compromise is key. But when the two parties are operating in such different realities, one celebrating an economic win, the other mourning what they call state-sanctioned murder, is a consolidated bill even possible? Or is the split just inevitable?
I think we're seeing that the old way of doing business, lumping it all together and holding your nose, that might be over. The cracks are just too wide.
If you want to see the cracks for yourself, I highly recommend going to congress.gov and pulling up the record for January 28, 2026. Read Senator Wyden's list of amendments. Read Senator Moran's tribute to the victims of Flight 5342. It is a sobering read, but it's an important one.
It's the only way to really see the context.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Congress and context. We'll be watching the vote counts, and we'll see you next time.